today I'm going to be doing a video on makeup tips, do's and don'ts. So for the most part, when doing your makeup, it's important to understand your own face, and that can mean many different things for people. So as first thing, it's important to really understand like what your skin type is. Like, do you have oily skin? Do you have dry skin? Do you have normal skin? Do you have combination skin? Because that's going to make a big difference when applying certain products and the order which you apply certain products. Another thing is to understand your facial structure. So if you get into contouring, it's important to understand like the shape of your face and the structure to know what parts you should or shouldn't highlight. That's gonna best accentuate your features. And another thing that's really important is to understand that what works for one person may not work for you, and what looks good on one person may not look good on you. So know what works best for you and know what's gonna give you the look that you're looking for. So with that being said, let me dive in, and I'm gonna mainly focus on some things that work for me or don't work for me, or just overall general tips. So to start, always use a moisturizer after you wash your face before your primer. Some people use a primer and they think that it's enough, but depending on the primer, it might not be. So it's important to understand the product you buy and to understand what your skin type is. So for me, I need to use a moisturizer. I normally use something really light, like this Clinique one. And then when I'm done with that, I'll go in with my primer. I use the e.l.f. one. And I normally keep it really simple. Slightly prime the whole face. Now, because my skin is really oily, what I do before putting on my makeup is I'll put a setting powder. So I'm using the Fenty Beauty setting powder in translucent. Actually, no, it's in banana. So what I do is I lightly put the setting powder. From there, what I actually do next is I take some setting spray and I spray it over my face. And for this, I just use the Decay All Night setting spray. And once that's dry, I lightly go over my face with some setting powder again. And that just helps my makeup stay in place. It helps avoid creasing and a lot of things like that. So I'm gonna have one side of my face be the don'ts and another side of my face be like what you would do. So I'm gonna start with my eyebrows. So you for sure want to brush all the hairs up. Okay, so what you don't want to do, you do not want to start lining your brow right at the beginning of your brow. That's gonna give it too bold of a look. So what you do want to do, you want to start it a little bit behind where your eyebrow actually starts. Okay, so you see what I did here? You don't want to start it right at the start. You want to start it partway through. And then you make the end of the brow darker than what you would make the middle and the front of it. You don't want to make the whole thing too dark. What you want to do next is go in with a concealer that is not too light. Because when you go with one that's way too light for your skin tone, it's gonna give you a highlighter effect around your eyebrows, and you don't want your eyebrows to look like it's randomly just, I don't even know how to explain it, but you don't want that look. So the concealer you use shouldn't be too many shades lighter than your actual skin tone. So as you see, once I blend it out, it's pretty easy, and then once I add the foundation on over that, it's gonna blend nicely. Whereas if you use a concealer that's too light, it'll be harder to blend it. So it's easy to see how this one would be much harder to blend than something like this one would be. So what you want to do next is gonna depend heavily on if you're gonna do eyeshadow or not. So if you are going to do eyeshadow, you want to do that first. Just because once you get all the fallout and stuff from the eyeshadow pigment, it's easier to get rid of that if you do your foundation afterwards and not beforehand. So I'm going to be using this palette, Naked by Urban Decay, Heat. Building upwards, like to a darker color, gives it a nicer finish than if you just jump right in with your dark colors. I'm on to the second color now. And then now I'm going to go in with a darker color. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to blend it out a little bit with the lighter color to give it a nice smooth transition. So with this other side, what you don't want to do is go right in with a dark color. Because it's going to make the lighter color much harder to blend. Whereas this one has much of a nicer transition and this one just abruptly goes. When adding your shimmers, it's important that you use a flat brush. So like this brush is a lot flatter than like a brush that's like this, which is more fluffy. It just helps the eyeshadow transfer on much smoother. So what I do is I apply it heavily in the front, and then as I get towards the middle and the end, blend it outwards so it like fades into that darker color. And then when you use a fluffy brush, it's harder to get the eyeshadow as precisely as you want it. Although that seemed to work, but whatever. Believe me, it's normally harder if you have more shimmered colors or more pigmented colors. Okay, from here, adding the foundation. So for the dew side, I'm gonna use the Nars, and not just because I love it, but... So with foundation, especially if you plan on contouring, you don't have to put too much. So I'm gonna put one pump, and I'm gonna blend it nicely. Another do, get a foundation that matches your skin tone. I know that sounds obvious, but sometimes people get something that's a little too light or slightly too dark and think that they can adjust it with concealer or whatever the case is. Get one that really matches you. There truly shouldn't be much of a difference from your overall skin tone and the foundation. Like under my eyes are a little darker, so yes, the foundation is gonna be a bit lighter than that, but the foundation should match your skin tone. Like when the foundation actually matches you, it shouldn't take much to blend. You shouldn't be doing too much because it should blend nicely. Like I only have foundation on this part of my face, and as you can see, like it is so close to the actual color that I didn't really have to do much at all, and it doesn't take much foundation when it's your color. For the other side, I'm going to use Clinique. There's nothing wrong with Clinique. I like this foundation as well. So as you see, because I used the foundation that was way too light to highlight my brows, it's much harder to try to blend once I add the foundation. Like you have to do a lot more blending, and then to try to get under the eye is very difficult to do. So what I'm gonna do now that I've added the foundation, I'm gonna finish this brow. I know you guys were probably wondering why it looks so crazy, but I wasn't done with it. So what I'm gonna do is go back in with my eyebrow brush and make hair-like strokes. Okay, so I'm gonna go back in with my eyebrow brush and make hair-like strokes. See? Look at that. Just look at that. Whoosh. Okay, so next, concealer. So if you really want to highlight underneath your eye area, do not go right in with a super light color. That's gonna make you look kind of ridiculous, and it's gonna be much harder to blend, as we can see. What you wanna do is go in with this concealer that's only like about 1 shade lighter than your skin tone, blend that out, and then go back in with the lighter tone. And conceal all different parts that you feel you need to. Some people conceal like lower over here or underneath their chin. I don't really feel like I have to do all that. From there, use a beauty blender or use a brush to blend it out. Then after that, you go in with a slightly lighter color. And when you do that, you only want to highlight about here and a little bit more over here. You don't need to do the whole shebang at all. That's going to defeat the purpose of putting the first color first, and then this one blends into that other color, so it's a much smoother transition. Now for the don't side, I'm going to go right in with the lighter concealer. As you see, it's just a lot harder to blend. Like there's much more of a difference from this side compared to this one. I feel like such a ghost. Okay, next I'm going to go into the contouring. What you want to do is use a color similar to the concealer, one that's not too much darker. And where you contour heavily depends on the shape of your face and your bone structure. So some people like to contour more over here, and I'm gonna contour right alongside my jawline. So right along there. So as you see, that color is not too much darker. Because again, when you use a color that's too much darker, much harder to blend. One thing I will say about this type of concealer is it is nice for my nose contour. Just the application of it. Whereas this one, it's a bit harder to put it on. I can make both nose contours work fine, but I like the shade. Then I'm gonna go in with a smaller brush and just blend that out. So I'm gonna blend it underneath the eyebrow. And just a tad bit in front of it as well. And for this one, I'm gonna do the same. And some people like more of a nose contour than others, but this one, as you see, blended nicely, not only because the shade was much lighter, but also because the concealer, it blended right into the concealer nicely, whereas this one, the concealer is far too light, which is why it's hard to blend that nicely. What I'm gonna do next is go in with a beauty blender to smooth out the look of like some of those harsh lines. You really wanna make all of that blend in. So where the lighter concealer and the darker concealer come together, you really want to blend that out together. this side is gonna be a lot harder. It's gonna take a while longer simply because there's much more contrast in terms of the color. Then you want to do the same thing for the nose. I'm actually going to just do them both at the same time. Now I'm going to add the setting powder just to where I added concealer. So what I do is I just add the setting powder lightly, and as I add it, I'm also brushing it away. Some people like to let their setting powder sit on the concealer and bake, and it just depends on your skin type, the concealer you use, the setting powder you're using. And because I added setting powder before I started all this, I don't really need to let it bake. From there, I'm gonna add some Bare Minerals. It is just a darker shade foundation that I'm gonna go over lightly the areas I contour just to kind of set that as well. Then from there, I'm gonna take my setting powder brush and lightly blend that out as well, so it's not that much of a harsh difference from the contour. Then I'm gonna add a little bit of blush. I like to add the blush right around where I contoured, except just slightly above as well. Some people add too much blush and they add it on top instead of like blending it from where they contoured on, like upward. And that look, that just gives it a harsher look rather than like a more natural look. Then I'm gonna add some highlight. So I'm gonna lightly add highlight right where the blush finishes, and then in circular motions bring it upward a little bit. I'm also gonna add a little bit to my nose bridge and the tip of my nose. And a little bit under my eyebrow. Lashes, you either do them or you don't, you put them on or you don't. There's really no way to not do it right. I guess one thing is to make sure you put mascara on before you put the lashes. That way your lashes are nice and black and blend into the lashes rather than them having any makeup residue such as foundation or eyeshadow or anything like that. I like to go in underneath my eyes with the eyeshadow colors that I use, and it's important that when you do that, you use a flatter brush. So again, start with the lighter colors. And it's important to try to get the least amount of fallout ever. So I like to just take anything, whether it's a piece of paper, and it's important to do that with a small brush or else they'll get too much fallout and you won't be able to do it as precisely. So if you use a brush that's too big, much harder to get it as precisely as you would want. Not impossible, as you can see, but it's harder. So yeah, I mean, this is basically it for the do's and don'ts. Add some lip gloss. I mean, when you put lip gloss though, do line your lips. But as you can see, this side has a way nicer, neater, more natural and crisp look. And this one just, it's too much. It's too much going on. It's too harsh. Like everything is just not as precise as can be. And I've seen people going outside looking like they did too much far or too many times. But I hope this was helpful. I hope you enjoyed watching it. Leave a thumbs up, leave some comments below. Let me know what you think. Let me know which side you like better, because I like this side better, but I mean, I'm sure there are people who might think this side is perfectly okay, and to each their own. But thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. And yeah, so make sure you subscribe. Make sure you follow me on my other social media channels. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.